Well, Sarah Silverman just accused Caitlyn Jenner of transphobia.
I'm not joking.
Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and this is Winnie the Westie. You know, I often say that you can't make this news up, except you could make this news up. It's just that nobody would believe you. Sarah Silverman, the crass stand-up comic with her own history of controversy, best known for her roles in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, School of Rock, and the voice of that little girl in Wreck-It Ralph. Well, she apparently has a new podcast, and apparently based on one of the highlights from her new podcast that she posted to Twitter, she has just come out and accused Caitlyn Jenner of transphobia. I swear to you, you could make this stuff up. No one would believe you, though.
I saw Caitlyn Jenner saying trans girls should not play girls' sports. Caitlyn, you're a woman. This is not worrying about. This is not what that is. This is not worrying. This is not concern for girls' sports. It's transphobia, full stop.
Now, in order to fully appreciate the absurdity of this situation and the outlandishness of Sarah Silverman's accusation, it is necessary to know who exactly Caitlyn Jenner is. Caitlyn Marie Jenner, born William Bruce Jenner, October 28, 1949, is an American media personality, socialite, and retired Olympic gold medal winning decathlete. Jenner played college football for the Graceland Yellow Jackets before incurring a knee injury that required surgery. Convinced by Olympic decathlete Jack Parker's coach, L.D. Weldon, to try the decathlon, Jenner had a 6-year decathlon career, culminating in winning the men's decathlon event at the 1976 Summer Olympics in Montreal. Woot woot, Montreal in the house. Setting a third successive world record and gaining fame as, quote, an all-American hero, end quote. Given the unofficial title of, quote, world's greatest athlete, end quote, Jenner established a career in television, film, writing, auto racing, business, and as Playgirl cover model. Now, the Olympic history and success in sports is certainly going to be very relevant for the purposes of this vlog, but perhaps most relevant for the time being is that Caitlyn Jenner is transgender. Assigned male at birth, Jenner publicly came out as a trans woman in April 2015, announcing her new name in July. From 2015 to 2016, she starred in the reality television series I Am Kate, which focused on her gender transition. She has been called the most famous transgender woman in the world. Jenner has been described as a transgender rights activist, though her views on transgender issues have been criticized by other trans and LGBTQ+ activists. A member of the Republican Party, she is running for governor of California in the 2021 California gubernatorial recall election. And the truth finally comes out. There is a reason why I wear this shirt pretty much every day of the week. Politics ruins everything, and it seems the world is particularly unkind to people who do not share their political beliefs when they are on the Republican side of things. Who knows, perhaps that is just me confessing, but let's get back to some of the words of wisdom from Sarah Silverman.
This is so dumb. They are legislating this without one single example of how this plays out.
Oh, really? Sarah Silverman is purporting to her millions of followers that they are, quote, legislating on this issue without one single example of how this plays out. Sarah Silverman, it took me all of 5 minutes to find 3 concrete examples on the interwebs, although I was already largely familiar with these 3 particular examples. Trans cyclist Rachel McKinnon keeps winning championships and her detractors don't like it. Trans powerlifter smashes records and draws backlash. Transgender sprinters finish first, second at Connecticut Girls Indoor Track Championships. The winner, Terry Miller of Bloomfield High, is also transgender and set a girls' state indoor record of 6.95 seconds. Yearwood finished in 7.01 seconds, and the third place competitor, who is not transgender, finished in 7.23 seconds. Miller and Yearwood also topped the 100-meter state championships last year, and Miller won the 300 this season. So, Sarah, contrary to your statement, there are in fact several examples of how this has played out in real life, and it has resulted with the transgender athletes destroying the competition and setting new records that had hitherto not been set in women's sports. Not only has it led to that, but in 2 of those 3 examples that I just cited, it actually led to lawsuits. From The Hill, USA Powerlifting sued by transgender powerlifter over competition ban. And in the United States District Court, District of Connecticut, Selena Sewell, a minor, by Bianca Stanescu, her mother, Chelsea Mitchell, a minor, by Christina Mitchell, her mother, Alana Smith, a minor, by Cheryl Radkowski, her mother, Ashley Nicoletti, a minor, by Jennifer Nicoletti, her mother, plaintiffs. Versus Connecticut Association of Schools, Inc., doing business as Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference, Bloomfield Public Schools Board of Education, Cromwell Public Schools Board of Education, Glastonbury Public Schools Board of Education, Canton Public Schools Board of Education, Danbury Public Schools Board of Education, defendants, and Andrea Yearwood, Tanya Edwards on behalf of her daughter, TM, Connecticut Commission on Human Rights, interveners. Now, as far as I know, there has not yet been a resolution in the powerlifting lawsuit. There was a resolution in the Connecticut School Board decision. That lawsuit was dismissed on purely technical reasons, but before we get there, I think I probably owe you my own personal personal opinion on the subject. I believe in transgender rights, period. I believe that transgender people have the right to live in dignity. I also believe in women's rights, and when transgender rights trump women's rights, I think we have a problem. I do not believe in arbitrary discrimination, but I do believe in setting categories and discriminating where the grounds of that discrimination is reasonably justified or justifiable in the context. I do not believe in hiring blind bus drivers, for example. It is not because I support discrimination against blind people, it's just that when it comes to driving buses, I consider vision to be an essential characteristic. I believe that when it comes to sports, distinguishing between chromosomes is a relevant and justifiable distinction to make. Gadsad at Gadsad. Dignity. Trans people have every right to live fully dignified lives free of bigotry, but this should not come on the shoulders of half of humanity known as biological women. One could walk and chew gum at the same time. Let's fight for the right of all people to live dignified. So that is my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Judge me how you will. But now let's get back to the Connecticut lawsuit and see how the plaintiffs describe the situation. Plaintiffs claim that the CIAC, which is the Connecticut Interscholastic Association Conference policy, puts non-transgender girls at a competitive disadvantage in girls' track and, as a result, denies them rights guaranteed by Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972, 20 U.S.C. Section 1681 to 1688, and implementing regulations which require that if a school provides athletic programs or opportunities segregated by sex, it must do so in a manner that, quote, provides equal athletic opportunity for members of both sexes, end quote. Defendants have jointly moved to dismiss the action on numerous grounds. For reasons discussed below, I conclude that plaintiffs' challenge to the CIAC policy is not justiciable at this time, and their claims for monetary relief are barred, and dismiss the action on this basis without addressing the other grounds raised in the joint motion. A little later in the lawsuit, we see how the plaintiffs frame the discussion, and I like the way they frame it because they don't frame it as boy versus girl, man versus woman, male versus female. They frame it as genotype. And I do think that is the most appropriate way of framing the debate because you avoid all of these social constructs and you go straight to genotype, to biology. Plaintiffs claimed that by permitting, quote, male-bodied athletes, end quote, defined as, quote, individuals with an XY genotype, end quote, to compete in girls' track, the defendants were denying them an opportunity to compete for places on the victory podium in violation of Title IX and 34 CFR Section 106.41c. The punchline of this lawsuit, if I could phrase it that way, is that it gets dismissed, but not on the merits. It gets dismissed on a purely procedural technicality of sorts, in that the transgender students had graduated in the time that this lawsuit got filed, so there was no longer any issue to adjudicate on. Applying this standard, I conclude that the request to enjoin enforcement of the CIAC policy has become moot due to the graduation of Yearwood and Miller, whose participation in girls' track provided the impetus for this action. There is no indication that Smith and Nicoletti will encounter competition by a transgender student in a CIAC-sponsored event next season. Defendants' counsel have represented that they know of no transgender student who will be participating in girls' track at that time. It is still theoretically possible that a transgender student could attempt to do so. Even then, however, a legally cognizable injury to these plaintiffs would depend on a transgender student running in the same events and achieving substantially similar times. Such, quote, speculative contingencies, end quote, are insufficient to satisfy the case or controversy requirement of Article 3. I fully recognize the limits of my own knowledge. I recognize that I am a Quebec attorney and have no specialty in American law, but I do have to say I strongly disagree with this judge's decision. I think he is just ducking out of rendering a hard decision on the merits of the case. The specific issue of this case may have become moot because of the fact that these two specific transgender students had graduated, but the issue is still there, and what are they going to have to do? Sue again if there is another transgender student who applies to race in the same event as them? Why not just adjudicate on the merits of the issue now? From what I understand, this is actually an exception to the mootness doctrine under United States law, but the judge finds a way around this as well. Smith and Nicoletti contend that their challenge to the CIAC policy falls within the exception to the mootness doctrine for a controversy that is capable of repetition while evading judicial review. And what does the judge say to this argument? Plaintiffs also fail to show that the injury they complain about, if it did recur, would, quote, evade review, end quote. If it turns out that a transgender student does register to compete in girls' track next season, Smith and Nicoletti will be able to file a new action under Title IX along with a motion for a preliminary injunction. Plaintiffs have expressed doubt that such a motion could be heard and decided in a timely manner. However, it is reasonable to expect that if Smith and Nicoletti were to allege facts satisfying the traditional requirements for a preliminary injunction, a request for an expedited hearing would be granted. Plaintiffs' request for an expedited hearing in this case was denied only because of COVID-19 and the ensuing suspension and cancellation of CIAC-sponsored events. Accordingly, I conclude that the request for an injunction enjoining enforcement of the CIAC policy is now moot.
This is not concern for girls' sports. It's transphobia, full stop. It's just such a bummer when such a prominent trans woman is such a twat.
There is an old expression that when you point a finger at someone, there are three pointing right back at you. Congratulations, Sarah Silverman. You might actually be the ist or the phobe or whatever you accuse other people of being. And with that said, if you like my videos, you like my content, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment in the comment section below because it feeds the algorithm.
Wow, this is good. What's in there?
If you want to support the channel, all of these support links are in the pinned comment. We've got PayPal, Patreon, subscribe to our YouTube membership. We've got merch. Politics ruins everything. A shirt that will be as timeless as time itself. Robert Barnes and I do weekly live streams every Sunday. We do weekly streams with a guest every Wednesday called The Sidebar. We have a page on locals. It is called
Viva FarnsLaw.locals.com.
All of my content is also on Rumble, so you can follow me there. But more important than anything, take care of yourselves, check in on friends and family, make sure everyone around you is doing well, and Winston is going to do the peace out. Peace out? Peace out. Booyah!